Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while. So this evening we're going to talk about a recent problem I had and how I got around it eventually. So had the car not really break down but go wrong properly, I suppose, for the first time. It's a battery problem, as the title says. So effectively, long and short of it is my battery finally died. So the car is 6.5 years old almost. So I guess it's a fair lifespan. I know lithiums are meant to last a little bit longer than that, but I suppose I can't get too mad at it. Anyway, I was on a road trip in Wales. Nothing had been indicated prior to this of any issues. The car hadn't displayed any error messages or anything. Got in the car of the morning after we'd stayed at the hotel, and had a full charge according to the display readout when we left the car park. But then 30 minutes into the trip, I got a battery malfunction warning, and I got our classic disco windows, so windows going up and down, as they always seem to. Pulled over into a lay-by and turned the engine off, and everything died, which was great. Got out of the car and stupidly let the door close behind me. So then, in classical Wales fashion, the rain starts to beat down and I'm stuck outside my car. Fortunately, I had watched a few videos and knew about the emergency access key. For those of you who don't know, the emergency access key allows you to get into a dead vehicle. It's inside your key fob, and I can't show it to you here because there's not really enough space. Under the side of the car, down here on the passenger side, underneath there's a flap. You can remove that flap, and then there's a keyhole you slot the key into, and it allows you to get the passenger side door open. Then inside the passenger side door, next to the door hinge in here, is a catch, which is a manual release to allow you to get the front hatch open and then get access to the battery. So I was fiddling around trying to find this access panel underneath the car, having never done it before, grazing my knuckles against the tarmac and getting more irritated, and then randomly the car sprang back into life. So I took that opportunity to quickly get back in the car, restarted the engine, and it started fine. I had a full tank of petrol, so I basically abandoned my road trip and drove all 180 miles home. When I got home and I stopped the engine, the car completely died once again. So I got the car trailered to V Engineering with the AA. To be honest, they were great. So they were really good, helped me out. Basically, the guy came out within half an hour of reporting it to my home address, and then got trailered the same day, a couple of hours later, and arrived at V Engineering that afternoon. So then I went on holiday while the diagnosis was done, and basically after a day, Steve at V Engineering messaged me and said that yes, the battery had finally died. So then I started thinking about replacement options. So looking into getting an OEM battery, which is an A123 Systems battery, it just looked like an absolute nightmare, and people were paying anything between £2,500 to nearly £3,000 at some dealerships to get one fitted, and it's just not really worth that as far as I'm concerned, with the price of modern lithium battery cells. So I started doing some research and quickly found out, as is quite highly publicized if you look on a few different forums and McLaren groups, that you can in fact reset the ECU in the car, so it doesn't try to talk to the battery, because with the OEM battery it is connected by a CAN bus link to the ECU. Now this seems to be the bane of most of the electronic issues with the car, in my opinion. The battery management system, or the little control ECU inside the battery, is very happy to be a nasty little evil gremlin and report things to the car's ECU that aren't actually real or aren't actually happening. And then the car's ECU stupidly goes with that information and shuts down all sorts of systems. Now, I've had a decent handful of electrical foibles, and they've all been related to that. The usual solution is to shut the car off and start it up again, but it's just a complete pain in the backside. So actually eliminating that feature of the communication between the battery control unit and the car's ECU, to me, seemed like a good move. Now, I could either go with a traditional lead acid or AGM option. You can get a really nice quality battery for about £300 to £400. But I'm a bit stuck up like that, and I wanted to keep with the lightweight ethos of the car. So what I decided to do in the end was I went for a brand called Anti-Gravity. After having done some research, they seem to be quite highly rated. They basically do a range of batteries that fit into the OEM cradle of the car, and they're to conventional battery sizes. Now I'll show you mine in here. You can't see much of it, obviously, but here we have the anti-gravity battery slotted in place instead of the original battery. Now you'll notice that there's a button on top of the battery here. Now this is the killer feature that really sold this battery to me, and I'll explain what that is in a second. The battery is actually a higher capacity than the OEM A123 Systems battery, so it's a 60 amp hour. The stock one, I believe, is 57 or 58. But in addition to that, it actually weighs 1.5 kilos less. So that's great as far as I'm concerned. Another little weight reduction there in the ethos of the design of the car, which ticked that box. But this additional feature is one of the other things that really sold this battery to me, so I'll explain what that is. So this battery has quite a sophisticated battery management system, just like the A123 batteries, but obviously it doesn't talk to the car via CAN bus, and it just operates on its own. So it's not going to lie or send any messages to the car about things that are going on that aren't real. But if it gets discharged, its onboard management system shuts it down into sleep mode way prior to the point where it's fully discharged, and it keeps a reserve of power. With the battery, you get this little fob, well, you actually get two of them, and obviously you've also got the battery with the button on as well that I've just shown you. And in those circumstances, if it gets discharged to the point where it shuts down, you use the fob, press the button on the fob, or if you've got access to the car, press the button on the battery. The battery will come back to life, and it has enough reserve power to quite easily start the car again a few times. So to me, that is a kind of a lifesaver, and especially on a car like this where everything is electrical, and where basically if the electronics aren't working, it becomes a complete pain in the backside to get back into the vehicle. To me, that is basically just a really, really good solution to that problem. So while I was at V Engineering, I had a few other bits done. I also had my front tyres replaced. Rather strangely and unusually, I found out that on the inside edge of one of my front tyres had worn excessively right down to the thread, and that has literally been in the last 4 months, because the car was checked in April. So in that time it has done about 4,000 miles, mainly on road trips, But Steve's opinion was that I must have hit a fairly decent pothole. As we all know, there are lots of those around at the moment, and it's knocked the tracking out of alignment enough to cause that excessive wear. So there's a note there for all you other owners. Keep an eye on your tracking, get it checked regularly, because it can cause issues. I've actually replaced my old tyres with a slightly different size. So I had originally the stock size of 225 35/19, and now I've gone for 235 35/19, which actually have the added aesthetic bonus of pushing out into the wheel arch there, and just looks really quite nice. It fills it out a bit, matches better the fact that I've got the spacers on the back there. And according to Steve, I'll get more front end grip because obviously you've got more of a contact patch, and he test drove it and said that the steering had definitely seemed to sharpen up from what he normally remembers 570 feels like. So both good signs. Driving it home from V-Engineering today, it did seem very accurate in its steering, but it's a little while since I've driven it, so I couldn't really review it 100% myself. In addition to that, he redid the geo for me. Obviously the car is lowered, but he said the job that Litchfield did last July is very accurate. It's very much to factory specs, despite the fact it's lowered. So they have done a good job. It's just that the tracking had got knocked out. In addition to that, I had a preemptive oil change. So I try and get mine changed every 5,000 miles. And I now use Motul oil because it does seem to run a bit smoother on Motul. So I use Motul Power 8100, 5W40 obviously, and it's had an oil change as well. So a good all-round workover, and I'm hoping that the addition of this new battery will stop a lot of my problems that I've had with regards to electrical niggles. So that's it for today, guys. Any questions, comment below, and when the next upgrade comes along, I will be posting a video, and I'll see you again soon.